You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
I'm a little
All right, I'm back from the madness of not being here last week and letting the Sam and Sam show take over.
Which was hilarious. It was so funny.
It was. Okay, we'll say it was hilarious, even though I just heard an analogy that you're the Andy Richter to my Conan.
Listen, that was given by someone to opinion who...
I would say matters very strongly.
I think he was drunk at the time. He doesn't know what he's saying.
Well, you know, people are funnier when they're drunk.
No, he was drunk at the time.
Well, okay.
Which means his perception was skewed.
Well, you're funnier when I'm drunk.
You're prettier when I'm drunk.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet.
I'm drunk right
now. Well, we have a very special guest today with us.
Yes.
So we're going to actually introduce you. We have Dr. Bregman here. How are you today, Doc?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're going to get into some a good conversation about CBDs because that's one of your specialties is discuss that. So we're going to get to that. Do you want to give a little bit of background to our listeners? I always say readers, but that's for the magazine.
Sure. I'm a medical doctor with specialty training in radiology, expertise in mammography, and I did that until 2007. I'm also a mental health advocate. Mm-hmm. And then in 2007, I entered the cannabis industry to dedicate the next phase of my life to the cannabis world, and I did about 5,000 evaluations of patients between 2007 and 2010, and then I went into the world of cannabis consulting, and I did that with the largest edible company in the state, and since then have done...
and who's that?
Edipure.
And
then I have subsequently been consulting to other dispensaries and teaching some along the way. And also testifying in the early days when things were being passed legislatively. Myself and Dr. Shackelford were the only two physicians that were going down and speaking to the senators, et cetera, and testifying. So now I'm doing cannabis consulting exclusively and working with Matt Cook and other people as we move into other states and helping the industry develop both here as well as across the country.
Right. Well, for those listeners who don't know who Matt Cook is, he was very integral in creating the regulations for the medical marijuana industry here in Colorado because he was the head of the the Department of Revenue section of the MMED, basically. So he actually helped draft. I think it was 1284 now. I get all the bills.
Yes, and he was he brought the rules and regulations. He was the collaborative effort,
right?
Bringing the first rules and regulations to the state. I think in 2010.
Yeah, and whether you're in this industry and you know there's going to be complaints about all regulatory frameworks, no matter what industry you're in. Really, it was like a gargantuan task for Matt Cook to put those together. I thought
gargantuan, and he was good at trying to make a collaborative effort of bringing people in the industry to help set up the first rules and regulations for this industry.
Right. Well, and I want to applaud you, first of all, for being a doctor and stepping out as a consultant, because there are doctors out there that are giving out the prescriptions for red cards, but they're not putting themselves out in front in the public eye speaking for cannabis as a medicine. So, I just want to applaud you for doing that and kind of putting your neck on the line at the beginning, I think, is a good way to put it.
Thank you. And I also come from the position of not only being a physician, but I'm also a patient as well. So I speak on both sides of the coin in a balance. So I can be a patient advocate as well as speak of the science.
Right. Well, and I know we said we're going to get into CBDs because you and I had a very extensive conversation. We met for coffee, 2-3 weeks ago now? The weeks blend in for me nowadays. But, and I found you to be one of the best authorities to talk about CBDs as a doctor. So I definitely want to get into that conversation in our next segment. We do have to cover news right now, and you're welcome to pipe in opinions on any of these, Paul. So some interesting news going on, Samantha.
Yeah.
Do you want to – one big thing I want to say.
Go ahead.
The hemp harvest.
The hemp harvest is huge.
It's huge.
Are you going this weekend?
I'm not able to make it myself.
Who are you sending?
I am sending my new managing editor. I shouldn't make the announcement on the radio because I have to announce it to my writers, but we have a new managing editor, Rick Macy, who is he's been one of our best writers actually as well. And so he's going to be going out there.
Nice.
to cover the event.
I want to carpool with him, I think.
Oh,
When's he going?
I do not know, so
Okay.
you can get together with him.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Save the planet.
Save the planet, exactly.
Exactly.
But it's a long drive.
I'm also lazy.
It's like a 5-6
And
hour
terrible.
drive to get
I
out to
know.
that hemp farm. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way down southeast.
Crested Butte.
Yeah. What? Is it near Crested Butte? Am I wrong? I thought
Yes.
it was south.
That is south.
It is south, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're
It's
right.
like south west.
Yeah.
But like not quite southwest like Durango.
Right.
But like, you know.
But it's exciting. It's the first hemp harvest. I know that Ryan was looking to use a combine and it was eating up the hemp plants. So now
Yeah,
the entire
you-
harvest is happening by
You have
hand.
to like have specialty equipment to farm hemp.
Yeah.
There's a way to sort of jerry rig the combine.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bowman actually knows how to do it in order to do that. So maybe Brian wasn't able. I don't know. I honestly don't know that many details. I've been
Mm-hmm.
kind of not as checked into hemp just in the last few weeks as I'd like to be because of other things I've been doing.
Yes.
But I still have a pulse on it, and I'm still very much involved and excited. And right now, hemp-wise, we've been focusing on like counties and working with them for tax incentives to get a lot of these manufacturing companies to move here and
Yeah.
trying to set up that right infrastructure. So it was actually one of the things I talked to Jack Finlaw about last night, who's the governor's legal counsel, and it was like they're very excited about it. So I think we're going to do some exciting things this next session with hemp, with like tax incentives and like getting businesses here. Like I'm really excited about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear more about
And
it.
that's a forerunner to what's also or going on also in places like Kentucky
Yeah.
and other states that are really giving breaks and looking, and the farmers are on board as well for the benefits of hemp, which are wide-reaching.
Yeah. And Kentucky has the benefit of they have a really strong advocate in James Comer. And they're, Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, they've been fighting for that a lot on a federal level. We have a good advocate here, of course, Jared Polis. And now actually Senator Bennett, I think, is going to take up the fight for us.
Awesome.
Which might be a little premature. This is sort of like on the down low stuff I've heard, but we're really excited. Like I think Senator Bennett would be a good advocate. I know he sits on the conference committee for the Farm Bill. So I think he's going to keep our research amendment in there, which is going to be amazing for CSU.
Well, I think what's really refreshing on the hemp side
Yeah.
when it comes to legislation and politics is it's crossing both sides of the aisle, especially in the climate in Washington right now where, we'd rather shut down the government than agree on one little thing, like passing a budget.
Yeah.
But hemp has actually crossed both sides, and to hear people on either side between Jared Polis and like Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul all be in favor of hemp production, and also the new Cole memo had a byproduct that I call it the new Cole memo, the one that just came out recently from the Department of Justice. It had one that I didn't foresee when it came to hemp. All of a sudden, Kentucky said, "Oh, well, now because of this memo, we're going to just start putting seeds in the ground." Whereas we were the only state at first, Colorado, saying we're going to put seeds in the ground for hemp.
No matter what.
No matter whether the federal government says it's okay or not. Which obviously I love to applaud Colorado for
Every
being
other
that
state,
pioneer.
every other state has a provision that as long as there's a federal okay. Unfortunately, Kentucky's attorney general came out against that idea. So, who knows? Sometimes you need to have that legal
Yeah.
sort of protection from your state attorney.
Sometimes you do.
The nice thing about hemp, at least in Colorado, the way we've legislated it, is it's not as restrictive as Kentucky and Oregon and like all these other states that still like kind of treat it like marijuana and cannabis. Is they're like, oh, you need a background check and you have to be fingerprinted. Like there's still quite a robust, I'd say, regulatory scheme for hemp. That we have, but it's definitely not as onerous as marijuana.
Right.
And I think that's good because that's going to allow for a freer market sort of production.
Yeah.
And the research aspect is
It's huge.
not only for the biofuels and the fiber, et cetera, but it opens the way up regarding medical because of the less than 0.3% THC
Yes.
and 7 to 8% of CBD,
Yeah.
and the ratio there. So there's Dixie is based on that, and there's other research that's
Yeah,
going on this.
there's Hemp Meds
So-
PX now as well that's come onto the scene.
So it's hemp from the medical point of view.
Yeah.
May be the breakthrough product and the crossover product as well.
Which is
I
going to
agree.
be huge because in our hemp bill, there's actually a THC waiver too when you're doing research and development. So I bet you guys are really excited to hear about that.
there's still a difference between the whole plant,
Yeah.
rich CBD-rich plant, and hemp, but it's a breakthrough that needs to be everything I say, it's further research needs to be done.
Yeah,
but it's a start. and
Because
it's
so
a
many
good
places
start.
have shied away from that research for so long because they had to either get an approval from the DEA to even look at it, and they didn't want to even touch in on that.
Yeah.
They're worried about losing
well, we
research
understood
grants.
that, like, for private research companies who really want to actively pursue, like you're saying, nutraceuticals and all that, sort of the more nutritional and healing aspects of hemp, that they needed that flexibility for the THC limit. I mean, if you really constrain someone, as long as you're not selling the product, we said, okay, you can apply for a waiver, and you're not going to be combined by that. And I think that, like, that's just so integral to the philosophy of science in general, which is like, you can't be restricted. Like, these scientists and these research and doctors such as yourself need, like, unfettered access
Yeah,
to be able to do what they need to do to heal people.
Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be some wiggle room when you're doing studies like this.
Yeah.
So like, oh, well, so I'm sorry, this wasn't 0.3 THC, it was 1% THC. But we didn't mean it to be, but we still need to be
But
able to
look,
study
it makes
this plant.
this complete perfect plastic composite
Exactly.
or something. Or this
Exactly.
is what produces the best,
Yeah.
seeds for eating, or
Yeah.
like whatever it is, I mean, you can't, you just can't be constrained. But I'm really excited about the nutraceutical aspect.
Yeah.
Right, and you can't argue with the fact of 8% CBD and 0.3% or less THC to get that to people and see the benefits in
Exactly.
that, because there are.
Yeah.
Oh, huge. And even just like the health benefits of eating hemp in general, the hemp seed. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, just eating it in general. Now, I don't want to necessarily, I want to kind of
healing
readdress
plant.
this conversation on the hemp side and the CBDs when we come back from our break, but I do want to cover the other news really quick.
There was news?
There was news.
There was something last night?
What happened last night?
I don't know. I was drunk. I'm just kidding. A little bit.
Okay. You know your mom still listens to this, right?
She knows I was drunk.
Oh, okay. Well, so tell me what happened last night, because
It was, when we come back, we can talk about the, are we going on a break soon?
No, we have time.
Oh, shit. You can cuss here. You
Okay,
know
we
that.
have 3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes. So last night was the fundraiser for the Committee for Responsible Regulation campaign, which is the Yes on Prop AA. And of course, Rob and his crew were there as well. The No on AA campaign, which I think is no.
Well, when you say Rob, you mean Rob Corey.
Rob
just so
Corey.
People, not
Sorry.
everybody knows Rob by this first name.
I love Rob. I do. And Rob was there as well. Rob Corey was there as well with, Miguel Lopez and Larissa Bolivar. She's the executive director, and I believe Miguel is the community director. I don't know, but anyways, they're the proponents of the campaign, and so this was the one fundraiser that we had that the Yes campaign had with the governor, which was like very important to a lot of the people in the industry because they feel like they've been ostracized from politics for a long time, and now is this their opportunity to show, to the rule makers and to other people and to, the state of Colorado in general, that this is a serious industry and they take their role very seriously, and and they're in favor of responsible regulation, and they just want to be treated like every other business. And so, that's why they support this tax, because they want a robust regulatory structure. And so it was fun. There was like a chick in there and dab buses. And
Was the governor there?
The governor was there on his crutches.
With a dab bus outside.
With the dab bus outside. I don't think
just
he went in
comical.
and took a dab. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't. Did he know what it was that was outside?
I'm sure he was informed. I didn't really come up in our conversation.
The dab bus is one of those weird conundrums in the industry that none of us know if it's legal or not. Like, nobody knows. I mean, I've asked lawyers and they're just like, I don't know. Because there's nothing that like was written in the regulatory framework to address the dab bus. And the idea behind the dab buses is they have these buses that are outside and they actually offer dabs for free.
Yeah.
So they're not charging.
No remuneration.
No remuneration. So it's still one of those things, like they're throwing maybe parties and they're maybe hosting the party, and maybe that's how they're making the money. I don't actually know how they're making money, honestly, right now. But they're not making money off of giving medicine away or giving it out and charging for it. So it's legal with a question mark.
It's certainly a gray area.
It's a very gray area. And I'm not against it.
No.
but I'm not like
it's entrepreneurship, and I love it.
I
The
do
one
too.
thing that that worries me, and it was something I actually, I called Rob Corey about it as a friend, and I said, I just worry that when you have like dab buses out there, that if that becomes the focus, then the people get scared, and then they want to like bring the hammer down on it. And there's going to be there's going to be 4 more working groups coming up with med. And one of them is dealing with concentrates.
Yeah.
And so as an activist and as like an advocate, that frightens me.
It's like a future possible headache.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That's
It's
what
like,
it is.
Oh, you're giving me a headache right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, this is going to be addressed at some point.
And now
hoping
it's
it gets delayed.
It's just kind of
It's
one of
like-
the things that it's just bringing like more negative attention to it when you want positive attention on it.
I
I
think-
think that just kind of can be frustrating.
And I think that's the thing with the dabs. We have to go on a break real quick, but I just want to leave it with this final thought. The thing about the dabbing is if you don't know what they're doing when you see somebody dabbing, it just looks illicit. You're seeing this like butane torch being fired up, and you're like lighting up this piece of metal, and then you're dropping the hash in there and it vaporizes. And we all know that it's actually, as long as the medicine itself the concentrate was made safely and is purged of whatever, whether it's BHO or whatever, that any contaminants that are used as a solvent.
mold. If you're doing water,
That's the thing I'm more concerned about is the safety of the medicine.
as long as it's done. I think that's why this working group that's coming up is really important, because as long as this is being processed in a safe manner that protects not only the worker's safety but the safety and the health of the consumer, then I think it's part of this whole freedom of choice thing,
Right.
And I think that yes, you want to bring intelligent regulation to it. You don't want to bring you don't want people coming at it out of fear.
You don't want a
and
knee-jerk
ignorance.
regulation put into
Exactly. And that's what I was like kind of worried. That's just kind of one of my disappointing,
Right.
I would say, aspects about last night. Other than that, it was a great time.
Well, and that's my thing. I guess that's what the thought I want to leave on the break is. It's not that dabbing is unsafe. It's that it could be perceived as illicit and unsafe. And I'm not going to make an opinion on whether it's unsafe or not, really. I haven't seen anything really dangerous come out of it, except for some people maybe dab out a little bit too much. They get pale and then they pass out and then they wake up and they're fine. But I think it's the perception that's really important in our industry right now at this point in its growth stage that we have to be concerned with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we'll be back in just a moment. We got to take a quick break.
Call Connoisseur at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Connoisseur understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Connoisseur has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Connoisseur at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at connoisseur.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
With the lovely Miss Samantha Walsh
Yeah.
and the esteemed Dr. Paul Bregman.
Steamed.
It's steamed.
I love
steamed. We'll just steamed.
I love his tennis shoes. They're yellow.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
From New York City and New Jersey.
That's right.
Oh, you can't be esteemed and from New York and New Jersey. Isn't that like
It's
an
just
oxymoron?
you can be esteemed. It's just a different type of esteem.
It's a different style.
It's a different style of esteem.
Different style.
I'm
Yeah,
just busting your balls,
yeah,
dude.
exactly.
But
You got to bust
you
his
like
balls.
my sneakers.
I love your
Yeah.
sneakers. They're yellow. I love them.
Yeah. I have some swag.
I love his stuff.
the
He's
swag.
got fucking style, yo.
So we said during the break, I just want to say we want to cover two more quick topics of conversation.
Yeah.
For news. First and foremost, the first applications
Yes.
for the adult use licenses, or as everybody else is referring to it, as recreational licensing.
They call it retail. A lot of them, a lot of these municipalities refer to it as retail.
I think retail works. I think
Just-
it's
yeah.
retail. It's retail. So the retail licenses, the applications came out. My understanding was the first day there was about 100 people in line. These are all obviously already existing dispensaries
Yeah.
and edible manufacturers and concentrate manufacturers out
Huge.
there. So there's no new licenses given out except for the ones that are existing medical, but already 100 were in line. We still have, which is a good sign for the first day. You know, I mean, that most of them were most likely in the Denver area, in Denver County, although I know some of them in my little lovely hometown
Edgewater.
of Edgewater is like the most friendly cannabis
Edgewater?
municipality.
Is it Patient's Choice?
Okay, so here's who's in Edgewater.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down by address here. I'm like, going down Sheridan from north to south, you have New Age Medical.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Bud Med, which is a Patient's Choice dispensary.
Yes, that's it. That's my.
If you take
I love them. That's my girl.
if you take a right on 25th from Sheridan, you go down the street a few blocks, you're going to see Greenworks.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you stay on Sheridan and you move down the way, you're also going to see Northern Lights Natural RX. 4 great dispensaries. They're all really good. And, here's the thing that's funny about Edgewater, and it could be named Greenwater from now on, because it's a 12 square block town. Everyone thinks it's a neighborhood of Denver, but that's it. It's just 12 square blocks with 4 dispensaries. So I'm pretty sure that Edgewater has more cannabis per capita than any other town or municipality in Colorado.
That's hilarious.
I know. It's kind of, I can't be accurate on that. I might be a little off. Maybe there's a couple mountain towns that might beat that out. But for the Denver area, Edgewater is like very cannabis friendly. And I've seen what I would say I could attribute to the marijuana industry in Edgewater, a help of stabilizing the economy in this little town. I mean, they were building up, they've been improving roads, and there hasn't been any other really new business. There's been a handful here and there, but as far as bringing in real revenue for taxes and property taxes, I think it's been the dispensaries that have immensely helped it out. And in fact, my understanding when I talked to one of the dispensary owners I mentioned, from one of the dispensaries I mentioned, is the city council meeting on whether they were going to allow the retail licenses or not was like the easiest meeting ever. They said, "What do you guys think?" And they asked the dispensary owners, and then they asked the city council, and everyone was like, "Yeah, we're going to do it." It was like not like there was no debating back and forth.
They're going to clean up. You know why they're going to clean up? Because Denver's such a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
And because they've like limited their hours of operation.
Mm-hmm.
Edgewater is going to trace. They are going to cash in on that. And I mean, because it's only like a 2-minute drive.
And here's the thing: I've gone to every one of those dispensaries and purchased, and they all have really good product.
And they're
all
not
of
just
them.
going to clean up on that; they're going to clean up on the kickback because they have that kickback that's written into the sales tax.
Yes,
where 15% of that sales tax goes back to that municipality.
Which is what makes it ridiculous that there's all these municipalities that want to add an additional tax on it.
I know. I mean, that's silly, but I mean,
You don't need that many hands in the cookie jar.
you don't. I mean, I guess in like a place like Boulder, I get it because they're like tax and spend liberals and they love it. They love taxing things in Boulder. I sat through a city council meeting where they debated a 0.25% land use tax for like 3 hours, and I'm not joking. It was I went cross-eyed, but that's how but that's Boulder. That's how they roll.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think Denver. I don't know. I think they're being a little
Well, Denver's going to have the biggest mess to do.
presumptuous.
Well, they're going to have
Yeah.
the most dispensaries that are retail.
Maybe. Okay, so maybe Denver makes sense, but then these other places don't really. I mean, if anyone should do it should be Colorado Springs because they really desperately need the money.
That's the funny thing about Colorado Springs. They're the second largest market for the cannabis industry in Colorado, and they don't want to go retail. So there's this one little dispensary in Manitou Springs, which is the only...
They're going to have two, I think.
They're going to have two, but there's only one
right now. Oh, yeah.
in actually town limits of Manitou Springs right now, right on the edge, that is actually open right now that's going to have a retail license. Meanwhile, there's 80 dispensaries in Colorado Springs that are servicing all of Colorado Springs right now. And none of them are going to go to retail for at least, a year, 2 years, depending on what our friend Mark Slaw can do when he gets legislation
I know.
going.
You would think that. Well, we'll talk.
But anyway, my point was,
Manitou
Manitou Springs, this one little dispensary, is the only dispensary in about, I want to say, 10 square miles, 20 square miles that's going to be retail. Because Palmer Lake's not allowing it. Pueblo's on a moratorium. I'm not sure what Woodland Park is going to do yet.
Yeah, but when
or
Pueblo
Cascade.
opens up, I think they might shorten their moratorium. I think right now they're just putting things in place. But when they open up, they're going to be very relaxed.
Yeah,
too.
but there are going to be lines outside the door of this Manitou Springs place.
Yeah, it's
It's
huge.
funny. And it's a tiny little shop, too, so they're going to be strange.
I don't know. Colorado Springs is a conservative enigma.
Well, the projection is that they are will go from 100,000 people, because that's the registry, up to 500 or 600,000 users, and we'll see what the registry what the registry looks like.
Yeah.
As far as because there are positives and negatives of having a card and not having a card.
There are, and I talked about that. I very rarely try to come out on when there's a debate between the industry itself, within the industry. I try, as a magazine, as the editor in chief of the magazine, we try not to come out.
Isn't that your job to form an opinion editor?
Let me finish my statement.
Okay.
Normally, we try to stay on the fence and report on both things because we're journalists and we're supposed to be unbiased.
Yes.
School of Journalism. But in the letter to our readers, I get to put an opinion in. And this issue of the magazine, which is at the press right now, so it'll be out in the streets next week.
Are you going to reveal your opinion on that?
I reveal my opinion on that. And I'll reveal my opinion right now. See, here's the thing. I've been having a lot of fun, and I actually say this in the letter. I've had a lot of fun being the devil's advocate on both sides. So when I talk to somebody who's for the taxes, I'm the devil advocate. What?
See that? He points at me when
he
says that. Subconscious.
I'm like, well, but what about this? The taxes are too high. It's a ridiculous setting. I think it's unconstitutional the way they're implementing the excise tax when you're vertically integrated. Why are you paying a tax to move your product from your warehouse to your retail location? It's nobody else is purchasing it, but I got to pay a tax for it. That's insane to me. So I agree with the ridiculous nature of the way the taxes are being implemented. But I am in favor of Proposition AA. And I do come out in favor of it. And the reason why is I looked at the arguments against it. And the arguments against it are, it's going to bring the prices up to black market pricing. Yeah, it may very well bring the prices up to black market pricing. That is a possibility. But here's where I kind of looked at it. I was like, okay, so if it's $50 an eighth on the black market, and I'm paying $60 an eighth by buying it legally in a retail location, it's worth $10 to me.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, you can walk into a dispensary now and they sell eighths for like $25 because the price of marijuana has become artificially low over the last 2 years in Colorado. But because we've been able to have these businesses do what they do and do it very well. Now, I'm not saying the price is a bad thing. I actually think it's a great thing that the prices dropped so low, especially in the medical market, because you're talking about something that's very much needed for people who oftentimes can't afford it because whose insurance is going to cover an ounce of weed, But I think that just the freedom to be able to walk into a store and pick as a recreational user myself, choose from 40 different strains to buy an edible, to buy a CBD tincture, buy some Apothecana lotion, to me that's versus what? Really being able to buy from two strains that my drug dealer buddy grew in his basement?
That's the analogy I use. I use that analogy and I was like, wait a minute. Let's flip it around and say the analogy. Would you buy sushi from some dude on the street? Or would you buy it in a restaurant that has passed a health inspection? And would you be willing to pay more to buy it in that restaurant that passed the health inspection? I would garner to say 98% of the people out there would say, yeah, I'm not buying sushi from some dude on the street.
I want some sushi now, dude. That sounds
I know,
good.
that does sound good. And that's the way I look at it. It's look, we're going to have mandatory testing for strains from these retail locations. So you're going to know the safety of it. You're going to know the dosage. When you're buying an edible, like an Pure edible, you're going to know what the dosage is.
You're going to know if there was pesticides used to grow it. You're going to know what kind of fertilizers. I mean, these testing facilities are going to be amazing because they're going to be able to test for so much.
Yeah, so look, I understand. There's going to be, in my opinion, and you guys can please pipe in, I think there's always going to be a black market. And when I say that, with the reason why I say that, I don't mean it like a necessarily, oh my God, there's going to be a black market that's huge. What I mean is like, look, my neighbor across the street brews beer. Now, there's costs associated with brewing beer. Now, he offers me one to taste and I don't pay for it. But say I was like, yeah, I want a case of your beer because I love it so much. Well, I would pay him for that. Now, is it legal for me to pay him for that? Not really, because he doesn't have a license to sell alcohol.
Well, maybe you would just like buy him dinner or something.
Exactly.
There
I would give
you
him
go.
some compensation, though.
No direct remuneration.
Yeah, no direct remuneration for it, but there's costs associated with brewing beer, just like there are costs associated with growing product out of your home. Now, I would prefer to have an option and choices. That's why I like to purchase in a dispensary. But if somebody's growing some product out of their home and they were like, hey, man, I really want you to try this, I would feel bad not giving them some money for it because they paid to produce their product. I think this
is also just an industry where there's a lot of people who are very good at what they do, and they actually are very good at growing it in their basement or at home or in like a grow, but there's a sort of limitation there.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that that's all going to be shitty. I'm sure it's going to be great. Like some of it's going to be great. Like some of the best growers I know do it on their own, But I think just the luxury of being able to go, oh shit, I'm out of weed. Dude's out of town. Like, do I really want to like make 5 phone calls to figure out like where someone might potentially get like, no, I'm just gonna go to Edgewater. I'm gonna go into Bud Meds, and I'm gonna like,
And that's the thing is when I'm talking about the black market that's always going to exist, that's like a friendly black market.
Yeah. It's more
the black market that they're concerned with, and I don't think it's going to be valid, is the black market of okay, I'm going to buy a bunch of this product and then I'm going to sell it to people illegally, like. From that. And that's where I don't think you're going to see as big of an issue, because again, most people, and you kind of touched on this, Paul. Most people who have a red card, there are advantages to having a red card. There's more advantages to having a red card than there are disadvantages.
And that's just what we call that is the gray market. We just call that the gray market. Yeah.
But I kind of said that in the argument. I was like, look, if you live in Colorado and you have a medical need to have it, you keep getting your red card. It is a medical card. It is a license to have 2 ounces to buy more than 100 milligram portions of edibles, but it's kind of a discount VIP card too when the retail side comes in, because we expect probably longer lines at that retail counter than at the medical counter, and you're not paying the taxes. Mm-hmm. To me, the taxes are for those people that are really scared about being, they want anonymity. Mm-hmm. It's always a hard word to say. And then it's for the tourists. And if if I'm driving into Colorado to buy legal bud, do I care about paying 10 more bucks for that legal bud, or do I want to walk around on the streets and try to find some black market stuff? I'm going to pay the $10.
I agree with you, and the protection of the card also is against law enforcement, because if you are having but you're not smoking in your car, but you're carrying in your car, and a police stop, you can show the card and you can go from there. And this could be a get out of jail card as well.
Which is why I think it's great that like a lot of these facilities are able to go to dual use to be able to still serve their medical patients.
That was a huge decision of not having to split the up and down or a wall in the middle of a dispensary as well. That was a mark. Yeah. You can draw a line under that decision right there for common sense.
Right. Yeah, that was huge. And like honestly, if some guy does walk into a dual use or what they're calling the coterminous facilities, and they are like, well, why is that weed more expensive than that weed? I'm sure this business will have a really wonderful VIP program or frequent buyer program or punch card that this person can participate in, or like a coupon or something to get like a temporary discount. Like, I just don't think it's going to be this huge problem that a lot of people are like making it out to be.
I think that's the thing is like, look, do I think the taxes are ridiculous? Yeah, I do actually. I think they're asking for too much money to pay to regulate the market. I know we have to go to a break. Chris is getting antsy. But I just think that it's not enough to scare people away, and it's not enough to make a huge, robust black market because the pricing is similar. I mean, I'm not going to go buy moonshine for the same price I could buy Jack Daniels at a liquor store. Because, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, really.
And you have to remember that the government had underfunded the initial program.
Yes.
And to have the taxes now, they want to make sure. But hopefully, and I'm a liberal Democrat, they will spend the money wisely.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be, and they won't pick it out and
so.
cherry pick that money, and it will go into other programs
Right.
that are underfunded.
And one final thought on this, because I think that's a really good point you make, Paul. But I here's the thing: we as an industry have not had a lot of a foothold right now because we're such a new industry. Regulatory framework being created for an industry that never existed before is difficult, especially when the people within the industry didn't have as much say as they should have had. But that's because we didn't have enough power within the free market in Colorado to be able to have that kind of a weight. Mm-hmm. When we start bringing in a lot of tax revenue, then we have a lot more weight when we go to those legislative body and say, look, these taxes are too high. You need to drop it another 10% because we know you're making enough money now to regulate this system.
Well, I just want to I know we got to go on a break, but I'll just wrap up. John Hickenlooper did say, or maybe I'll just say what he said when we get back from the break, because I think that will keep everyone tuning in. Cliffhanger.
All right, we will, and then I do really want to get into a nice in-depth conversation on CBDs.
Oh yeah,
since
okay.
we got Paul here, we got to talk to Dr. Paul
I
Bregman
love
here
him.
about CBDs. So we'll be back in
Scott,
just a
your
moment.
host.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
Independent Records and Videos has been your locally owned and operated choice for music, movies, and lifestyle accessories since 1978. Independent Records and Videos has 7 locations from Denver to Colorado Springs to Pueblo to serve your entertainment needs. Whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, books, smoking accessories, or hundreds of other fun and fanciful items, Independent is ready and waiting to make your dreams come true. We are always buying, selling, and trading vinyl, CDs, books, and DVDs, so sell yours and buy ours. Independent Records and Videos, your entertainment headquarters. Check us out at beindependent.com or on Facebook.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
Okay.
Please.
Well, so at last night of the fundraiser, we had a really nice speech from John Hickenlooper. He spoke about, how he really thinks that what we're doing is important. How the industry is stepping up is very important. I think he's definitely I think a little impressed with we are following through with our obligation.
Has he turned a corner then?
I think he's turned a corner, and he did say last night that if it turns out that the state turns a profit on this tax, they will absolutely lower the taxes, without a doubt. That is what he said. So whether or not you want to hold it to him or you believe him or not, but that's a quote you can use. He said, if we turn a profit on this, we will lower these taxes. He said that. So you don't have to believe him, but I do. And I think that at least you have something now you can hold them accountable for. Like you guys have said, if we turn a profit, they'll lower the taxes. And whether or not you think he's paying lip service, I personally don't. And if he does, then that's a mark against him.
But here's the thing. What defines turning a profit? Are you saying after the first $40 million? Because one of the numbers you mentioned, Paul, was $70 million in tax revenue is what they expect, which means the first $40 million going to schools, right? Then there's $30 million left over. Now, then you have the regulatory framework and the money that's going to be spent on regulations.
And education programs and, things like that to
so-
prevent diversion, to use and responsible use.
They ain't turning a
like
profit
that.
so quickly.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
I believe.
Yeah.
I would like to believe him, but let the money be utilized wisely.
I agree.
Let it be used efficiently.
Agreed.
Let it make the system run well, and all more power to it.
And let the state get addicted to it too. Let them
But
get addicted
that's
to
my
that
point.
money.
Is
Yeah.
let's have That's one of the points I kind of made. I didn't put it so eloquently and not succinctly,
Addicted,
I should say. But yeah, let's get them addicted. Because look, politicians, it still cracks me up how budgets are made in government. If you don't spend all of this money this year, we won't give you the same amount of money next year. That makes no sense to me. It's look, if you don't spend this money this year, we'll give you the same budget for a few years, and if you put a savings account for extra projects, great. But instead, they spend it all so they don't lose that budget. That's what I'm concerned about when it comes to budgetary spending by our government. If they make $70 million in a year, they're going to spend $70 million, and that means no profit.
There's never been I cannot remember any examples where money has been given and then given back.
Yeah.
But we shall see, and we can hope for the best.
Well, the way Tabor's constructed, actually, they're constitutionally obligated that if there's more revenue raised from the tax amount that they're asking, they have to actually kind of give it back to the voters. This is what the referendum C timeout was about. But in Colorado's budget's actually structured interestingly, where we have to always maintain a balanced budget, so they're never in debt. So you'll know if they turn a profit. Right. We're like one of the unique state governments where you can actually see if we turn a profit because we'll have a surplus and it'll be right there in the books.
Okay.
So
well, that's good to know.
But yeah, but no, but any
that's
other
why
states,
we keep Sam around.
But I would love. I just want to get them addicted to it, and like the doctor pointed out earlier and then watch these other states go. What? What kind of a job did you get? That's the best job in the world. I want that job. I want to make money doing that.
Yeah.
So, I think it'll be great.
And I think in the beginning, let them spend the $70 million on seed to sale tracking systems. Sure. Let them put all the systems in place. So 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, they're collecting the money that in, and then they can see that the profits are there and make that move to say, we have an excess here, and we're going to give it back.
And then all these other states are going to adopt our model.
But
and that's going to be a huge boon to these business owners who are going to be able to go to these other states because their model fits with what these other states are going to be doing.
I really do hope it works out that way. I hope that they have learned from their mistakes in the past when it comes to the regulations and money spent. But the track record is not that good. Let's be honest.
Listen, yes, but they did get their budget cut.
How much money did they spend on the software program and the RFID technology and nothing came out of it? How much money did they force dispensary owners to pay for security cameras and these special expensive DVRs that didn't work? I mean, and they never implemented. And that's what I'm concerned about. When government says, well, you got to use these people in order to get this contract, get this job done. And then those people are like, well, it's a guaranteed money.
Absolutely. Yeah. The state has to follow through on their part too. And when they say they need this money for enforcement, they better damn well be enforcing it. Like they better be checking to make sure that people are compliant. Like,
and this is where my
if people are going to be having to spend this money for licenses and complying, then the state better be following through with their obligations. Well, I agree.
I'm with you guys. I'm very liberal on most everything when it comes to money spent. As a business person, I've definitely switched gears a little bit in the last few years now and recognize, wait, how are you spending your money? Does it make sense the way you're doing it? And the more I look at government, I'm like, how is it even still around? I really don't understand.
Accountability doesn't seem to be a word that government understands.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Fiscal responsibility doesn't seem to be. Yeah. And it always winds up extra money goes into the general fund.
What is this general fund?
This black hole that we just hear about.
It is. It's miscellaneous expenses. It's like, it could be anything. It could be anything. I think that's the biggest issue I have with it. But, look, I think we've kind of talked about this enough that I really do want to talk about CBDs today.
Let's talk about CBDs.
Because we talked a lot about, you've been doing a lot of extensive studying on CBDs, Paul, and what kind of and I kind of want to backtrack a little bit because you started getting into consulting and everything. Was it as a patient first or as a doctor first that you started jumping into this?
I came in 2007 as a physician, doing and looking to do evaluations, and at that point, I became a patient around that time as well for treating chronic back pain after opiate use that wasn't working and made me sick, like the patients that I was seeing as well, and there was some allergy development as well. So the two kind of came through at the same time. Nobody was talking about CBD at this point. It was geared toward THC. The industry hadn't really developed as it is now, and now we're seeing a change in the industry, not only on the THC side, but also the CBD-rich side of cannabis, which is exploding. And so that's how I've entered. And now into the next role of consulting, it's just a matter of a physician playing a role as trying to help people start a good dispensary model. There's room for science next to the business, and the bottom line being the patient.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win-win in all situations. They're not mutually exclusive between making money and serving the patients.
Well, and I think there was a downfall in the industry in the beginning stages where they were finding these strains that were very low in THC content. And so they were kind of tossing those genetics out because at the beginning, it was like everybody wanted the higher THC plants, and they didn't know what they necessarily had when it came to CBDs. There were a couple of companies that went into labs and got them tested, and they're like, wait a minute, there's a lot of high CBD ratio on your plant. And the lab testing would say, wait a minute, you really need to take a look at this plant and what the possibilities are of it. So there was a couple of dispensaries out there that did look at that, and edible companies like Mountain High Suckers did that. Greenworks as a dispensary started looking at these CBD strains and saying, wait, we probably have something special here, but we don't necessarily know what it is. So, but they kept those genetics. I think there was a lot of genetics thrown out in the beginning, because people didn't understand what CBDs were and know the benefits. So it's been nice to see the demand in CBDs.
And what are the benefits?
Skyrocket.
Like, how does CBD affect? Like, if I ingest a high CBD tincture strain, like what are the benefits to that?
The bottom line with CBD versus THC is the therapeutic without the high. That's the bottom line. You can dose yourself accordingly, starting with 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams, edible product, shall we say, or smoke what you need, and you probably will experience, in my experience in testing and seeing patients tell their story with CBD, is that they felt it's a natural anti-anxiety. It gave them increased focus mentally. There was no psychoactive effects as we know it with regards to THC, and their pain, inflammation, seizures, migraines, you go down the list, was abated dramatically. And so that's what the bottom line is with regards. You don't expect the high. So there are three ways that people can use CBD. They can use it alone and not expect the high, which a lot of people do not want the high.
Right.
They can use it together, which will alter the high because CBD acts by blocking the receptors in the brain. And the third thing is they may use CBD during the day when they want to function without being stoned, and then they may come home and use THC product at night. And so those are the three categories of it.
One of the exciting things I've discovered just personally was the effect, like say you're high on THC and you smoke a CBD rich strain, it sobers you up.
And that's because simply of the chemistry of going to the brain and blocking the receptors, as well as it's attaching to other effectors. So one of the effects is for those people who experience the anxiety of the THC-rich strain, they can take CBD and it will bring them down. But there is a nutraceutical out there, too, that a lot of people don't know about called citicoline, Citicoline. And Janet Sweeney is using it with Phoenix Tears. In Phoenix Tears, they're treating cancer patients, and they try to work them up to a gram a day of THC-rich oil, the Rick Simpson oil or whatever it is.
Which is generally about, 80 to 90% THC?
Yeah, it's very high. And the problem with working the patients that high compared to getting 5 milligrams when you smoke a joint or something like that, because half of this goes up in smoke. So if you're taking 1,000 milligrams has been the getting too stoned, getting too anxious. They're finding now through this nutraceutical that you can buy at Amazon that pretty much should be sold in every dispensary just to help against the anxiety. You take a certain dose of the citicoline, which you can buy over the counter, and it knocks down the high as well. So that's one thing. In addition, if you buy CBD edibles and through Edipure or the lollipops or whatever it is, Dixie or whatever everything, that will also knock down the high as well. And that will depend individual to individual.
Now, my understanding also, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, is there's also the reverse. Now, if I'm taking, say, a CBD oil or a CBD strain, now I'm, throughout the day, and I have CBD-rich, in my system right then, but then I decide to smoke a high THC strain, my feeling in that situation was it almost enhanced the high from the THC.
And why that is because of the chemistry and the medicine behind that, is that CBD, so if you pre-medicate, you smoke a joint with CBD 15, 20 minutes before you do something, and then you smoke another joint of THC, CBD will be in your brain. It attracts THC across the blood-brain barrier. So the effect is, while it's blocking the receptors, the CB1 receptors in the brain so you don't get stoned, more THC is now in your brain. So as the CBD-rich effects wear off, more THC is going to go to those receptors. So the high that you're going to experience will be less anxiety because you'll have CBD on board, but you'll have more THC there. So the high will be elevated.
Right. So the CBD, it's a conduit almost for the THC in that order.
And it's the timing of when you're using the CBD. If you use it before THC, you're going to block it for a while, and then the high is going to come on, but little anxiety. If you take it after you've taken THC and you're too high, then your anxiety is going to go down because the CBD is going to be on board.
Well, what I love about this whole conversation on the CBD THC side is people are going to be more sophisticated as we go on how to exactly manage what they want to feel at any given time if they learn how to use the CBD and THC, together. Like synergistically in that aspect, either I'm focusing on CBDs during the day. Okay, now it's time for nighttime and it's time to relax and, or
this
get a
will
little
be
high.
the beginning of dosing, of the beginning of precise dosing, even to the point further. Because if I have a bad back, I may say I need 10 milligrams of Edipure or an edible of THC rich, and I need 20 milligrams of CBD, and that becomes the perfect level for me. I'm not stoned, and now I have both on board because you need both to work better together. If you just had a pure CBD product, it would not work against inflammation, pain, etc. You need some THC in that mix. What that mix needs to be is individualized per patient.
Sure. Interesting. Now, what are some of the exciting discoveries that are kind of on the horizons for CBDs?
Well, the biggest news event that can play into what you were talking about too, is Sanjay Gupta's.
Yes, I was going to bring that up as a segue.
Gupta's work
David ruined it.
and his work and his broadcast and reversing his policy has changed the playing field in a huge way. Now, there are conferences. I know a friend of mine who is an expert also in CBD. She was invited by a pediatric neurology group at 2 local hospitals after Sanjay Gupta's report to come in and introduce them and educate them about CBD because they were getting calls from around the country, as well as Denver and Colorado, talking about epilepsy and seizure disorders as well. And they didn't know anything about CBD or what Realm of Caring was doing and what Shackelford was doing or what anybody was doing and what it was. So you begin to see when pediatric neurology groups of respected physicians who would never have talked about cannabis in any way, shape, or form are beginning to invite experts in the field, in the community that shows you what's going on. So just his stamp has been remarkable.
Well, he did. He created legitimacy. I know because we interviewed him for this next issue. He got a little bit of flack for this because CNN is not that happy about it.
Really?
Well, they're a little upset because they don't want him to become the poster child for cannabis now. And they were fielding tons of questions and comments. I mean, it made a big impact with what he said, obviously. But I think they're not happy about the fact that he's promoting this because, first of all, you got to understand who's paying for CNN's advertising. Tons of pharmaceutical companies that aren't quite ready to be jumping in on this realm.
Well, for him to make a reversal of policy and basically say that the federal government is standing in the way of progress and patient care, as well as the social injustice. Remember how racist this policy
yes,
is. We have 1 million people in jail. 80%, I think, are there for possession. 60 or 70% are black or Hispanic. The stop and frisk laws in New York City with Mayor Bloomberg's policy are absurd. So you have all of these going on, and then you have Sanjay Gupta, neurosurgeon supreme, saying, I've been duped, the government's been wrong, and this is legitimate and needs more research.
And even meanwhile, right after that, there was somebody, I just read this news a week ago, somebody was sentenced to 20 years in jail for
in
2
Louisiana.
ounces.
For 2 ounces. It was in Louisiana, yeah.
Insane.
Right, it was a fourth offense.
A fourth offense, but it was just for possession.
Correct.
20 years. 20 years taking somebody out. No, we skipped our break because we wanted to just run through.
I was just curious because I thought I saw him make the gesture earlier.
He did, and then I said, we're skipping it.
Okay.
So, and this also begets the hemp issue, because the South has been a bastion of conservatism regarding it.
Yeah.
So Arkansas lost regarding that. But now with hemp introduction in Kentucky and everything, you may see the South, apart from Florida, begin to fall into place as well.
It's going to be all these agriculture states. It's going to be Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yes.
Colorado's a big one. Nebraska, Kansas. Like, you're going to have all these people with all this farmland, and they haven't been able to do much with it lately, and they just want, a lot of these farmers, when it comes to hemp, they just want an option. And one of the biggest ones that, like, the farmers are really intrigued about when it comes to hemp is how the plant desalinates the soil. So, like, even if they don't necessarily have a market for their hemp crop, a lot of them want to use it just as a rotational crop.
Just as a phytoremediator.
It will increase,
Right.
because it will increase their output for the following crop.
Right.
I mean, I'm just, because you always get the pearl clutchers who are like, oh, you're going to do what Canada did and there won't be a market for it. And I'm like, at least let these farmers grow it and play around with the plant. Like, this is what these people, this is their passion. This is what they do for a living. Like, let them grow, let them play around and figure out how they want to market this plant.
To go back to CBD,
CBDs.
Sorry, I know sometimes we have to reel each other in here. How are CBDs showing up for treating of MS? I mean, we know that cannabis for the treatment of MS has been showed so much promise and has been utilized on a regular basis now. But CBD specifically, is it helping MS?
You take all the list of, when you get into pain, inflammation, spasticity, treatment of the qualifying conditions, and even the non-qualifying conditions, CBD has been shown, anecdotally mostly, to be successful in those treatment. When you combine the two, there may even be more success.
Well, because that was my next question, the synergistic relationship between THC and CBD.
It's the same thing. Synergistic effect is there. That's why growing the whole plant, okay, and we still have to do the research. Is the hemp plant with its terpenes and flavonoids going to be as effective as growing a cannabis plant that is just CBD rich and has terpenes and flavonoids as well? So that's because CBD is CBD is CBD, and we know what that does. So the answer to your question is yes, and the answer to the question is that CBD and cannabis should be also on the shelf with regards to other medicines, and when the other medicines have not worked or the side effects are there, cannabis should be used, and the option now of CBD to be therapeutic without the high is a remarkable thing. In my mind, it could be Nobel Prize winning.
And
I agree.
What do you think about people who want to choose that as their first option of medicine?
That was exactly what I was going to say.
Because it seems, I don't know, what does the scientist in you say that when it comes to studying things like MS and epilepsy, obviously those are neurological misfunctions. Your synapses in your brain aren't communicating with your nerves. So, I know because the research hasn't been there, because you guys have been hamstrung, but would you theorize that because, the brain has an endocannabinoid system and that it is so receptive to these CBDs and that it has such a wonderful effect that is what's, sort of, I don't want to say curing the MS and epilepsy, but at least ceasing the symptoms?
Well, it's going to the receptors on different levels and having its positive effects that way. The idea of synergism, if someone wanted it to the first line and they didn't, try it and see. They have nothing to lose. That's why I even put it at the end. Somewhere along the way, try it and see if you have nothing to lose. Because I can dose you. We can go up 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams,
Right.
30. For you, it may be 60 milligrams for your pain or your MS, and that's going to, and we can stay there. Or we may be at 100 milligrams for you. Most people have been in that sweet spot around 40 milligrams. And again, the doctors don't have to, and the patients don't have to worry about getting stoned.
But do you think like we're going to get to a point, hopefully medically, that cannabis, CBD, and THC becomes a preferred method of treatment because it works so well?
Like the first option before we
No
go to
question about it,
chemotherapy.
and we need the research. I think what happens because of the beautiful synergy effect is that I think that you're going to be able to combine traditional Western medicine with cannabis, and you're going to see better results with cancer treatments, with better results with treatments for MS, for chronic pain. People, I'm not saying throw Alzheimer's in the mouse studies were definitely. Because I went to a lecture, a researcher was doing it at Ohio State, I think, and the mice that had the gene for Alzheimer's, they were given one puff 3 times a day of THC-rich cannabis. They did not develop Alzheimer's in the lab study. It was remarkable when he reported this and showed this on the slides.
Sure.
So the idea, the overall effects of things is what I tell people, and when I've spoken to people when I was writing evaluations or approving evaluations, is saying, if you're taking 2 or 3 opiates or you're taking 5 ibuprofen, try a half of a Percocet and use your cannabis in conjunction with that, and you're going to see improved pain relief by working that. So if you can get down to somebody using a quarter or a half, and they were using 3 or 4. See, one of the biggest problems in this, that's even more talked about, is that people buy ibuprofen and Aleve and acetaminophen over the counter, and they think they can take 8, 10, 12. Well, that's showing up as being one of the leading causes of liver failure and kidney failure in the country. Yeah. So they're not educated about that. They think that it's safe at these higher doses. So if you can lower those doses as well, and it gets back to, I'm not going to get stoned, and it's going to be therapeutic.
Right.
Because and then you're going to have the soccer moms coming in, and the word of mouth is going to spread, and all of a sudden this is going to decrease the stigma, increase the legitimacy, and people are going to see the effects. And then they're going to go to their doctors, because the doctors are not trained in this.
No.
And the drug company reps are going into the doctors and giving them samples to keep things going. Then the demand, if you go in and you said, I tried some CBD, some Edipure CBD with a split of 30-1, and I took 10, 12, 20 milligrams, and I'm sleeping better and I'm in less pain and my anxiety is down, I think this is the way that I'm going to go right now. It's going to force the doctors to sort of re-examine how they're practicing medicine. So this may be a movement that's going to be coming from the patient movement driving this, as opposed to coming from the doctors.
Well, I know that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know Cloverleaf University actually just add a new curriculum where they're going to be teaching doctors and nurses about endocannabinoids and CBDs and THC, so they can learn about it.
And this is going to be driven by, I think, CBD.
Yeah.
In the fact where here's CBD, Sanjay Gupta, epilepsy, and that was just a small case, an extreme case, but small. But wait till, because 94% of the recommendations are recommended for pain, for chronic pain, because it becomes a catch-all for, we don't have diagnoses like migraine should be on the list, ulcerative colitis should be on the list, bowel problems should be on the list. You're going to start to see things happening because of CBD that could change the whole way society looks at pain treatment. As I said, 94% are for trained. We have nothing really good for chronic pain.
Well, yeah, they just did a study on utilizing opiates and the traditional pain relievers that pharmaceutical companies, basically divvy out to the doctors to give out, and they've shown absolutely no correlation to it improving any pain management whatsoever. So everybody they've been giving these opiates to for pain management, it hasn't done anything but just cover up the symptoms.
Yeah.
but it's not helping anything.
Well, you know what's actually really funny, and this is completely anecdotal, but I used to be one of those heavy ibuprofen users. I will buy the big bottle, and I would take 8 a day, you know, because I would get like headaches and neck pain because I had been in a couple of car accidents, and so I had like whiplash. So I had like really bad neck pain, and it wasn't until the last like couple years that I really started using cannabis. You know, mostly just recreationally. I didn't even really approach it from a medical angle. You know, I never thought it was a sham. I actually voted for Amendment 20. You know, I just thought like that was for cancer patients or for like people who had serious like, you know, chronic pain where they have to like use a cane or some kind of assistance to walk. Like I figured like little old me with like my neck pain, like whatever. And I would get terrible ulcers. Like heartburn and stuff like that, and like I would get really bad.
You're nodding your head because
aches,
you're like that happens all the time, right?
And then I've just like when you were talking about ibuprofen, I literally thought in my head like, oh my god, I haven't taken ibuprofen except for a hangover, in months, several months. I'm not talking like 2 or 3 months. Like I haven't purchased ibuprofen in a very long time. The only time I now take it is like when I have a sunburn or something because it, you know, it's an anti-inflammatory, so it kind of
so is
helps
CBD.
with the sunburn. Yeah, but
I
now I'm going to rub some CBD oil.
you know, and I bet. I mean, just guessing. I mean, you know, I'm not a doctor, but I would guess that for hangovers, CBD-rich strains would probably work better than ibuprofen as well.
Probably.
You know, I mean, we can't say yes,
but I'm just saying, if you took one ibuprofen and you took 20 milligrams of CBD, it may work wonderfully.
Oh, yeah.
And you will have cut things. You would have cut your ibuprofen use. And that's what I tell people in chronic pain. Because most opiate users go up in dosing, too. The tolerance level begins, at 25%?
Right.
It becomes addicts with opiates as well. You have one death every 19 minutes in this country from an accidental overdose of prescription medicine.
So 3 people died during this show.
Correct.
Oh
and
my
you have
gosh.
22 veterans committing suicide supposedly every day due to PTSD,
PTSD.
and things like that. So for that to not be a qualifying condition for my recommendation for the Colorado state of qualifying conditions is that they should take the most liberal stance looking at New Mexico and other states that have PTSD or ulcerative colitis and these conditions. If it's good enough for New Mexico doctors to be able to use it, why isn't it good enough for Colorado?
Yeah.
I agree, but we do have, symptoms of PTSD are under the side of prescriptions for Colorado. If you look at certain things, anxiety.
No,
No?
I'm saying there's no psychiatric illnesses that are on there when the American Psychiatric Association has looked into it for treatment of treatment-resistant depression, bipolar illness, some anxiety. For those, certainly it causes more anxiety than not, THC rich, but for some people it decreases their anxiety as well, especially indica strains as well. I mean, we're getting to the point now where certain types of the Kush strain or the purple strain of indica or things like that can be more clued in for pain treatment, for other things for sleep. Sleep treatment is easy at this point in time. You take indica tinctures and you put a dropper full or half a dropper full or a couple of drops or whatever it is into tea at night with some cream, a little bit of cream, and you drink that 15, 20 minutes before you go to sleep. I'm seeing patients are telling me anecdotally they're getting better night's sleep than they ever have after taking years of temazepam or Valium or Ativan or other things like this. So we're reaching an age when the research can be done. We can see massive changes because the anecdotal evidence is out there, and there is some very good research being done in Israel, Spain, and other places.
Oh, Israel's
as well.
huge. They're all over this right now.
They are. We've actually gone over. We skipped one of our breaks because I really wanted to make sure we got to cover the subject a lot more. We definitely would love to have you back on again.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, actually, it's great to have a physician on.
Bring orange shoes this time.
Bring what? Orange shoes next time? Okay.
You have orange shoes? I bet you do.
I have another interesting pair of sneakers that are more like spats that I think you'll appreciate as well.
Right on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
well,
love your shades.
before we go, though, Dr. Paul Bregman, you are involved with Edipure, one of the largest edible companies
I
in
have
Colorado.
done consulting for them,
Yeah.
and now I'm branching out doing other consulting, and Edipure is doing their thing as well, and we're in contact.
Okay, excellent. How can people find out about Edipure?
They can go online. They can ask. They're in most dispensaries in Colorado, and they can find out that. But I think that that way as well. So asking bud tenders and med tenders, they know it well. I think Edipure was the beginning product regarding changed the face of edibles because they were the first with precise dosing, no cannabis taste, and consistency.
Right.
I think there are other good products that people should look at and experiment with and be able to see what works best.
My girlfriend loves his gummies.
Oh,
The
yeah?
Edipure gummies. Yeah, because she's a big gummy bear person, so she likes the gummy flavored ones.
Nice.
They're really good, actually. Dr. Paul Bregman, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you
us
very
today.
much.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
real
awesome.
pleasure having you on, and we definitely will have you on again, hopefully, if your schedule allows it. I will not be here next week.
Again? I all by myself again?
You are all by your lonesome next week.
What is next week?
Next week is Thursday the 10th. I will be on a plane to Vegas and taking my first vacation in...
Is it a vacation or work? Because I'm supposed
No,
to be
it's
going to,
actually a vacation. It's my first vacation in 3 years.
I'm supposed to be going to Vegas too soon, so
Yeah.
we may have to run.
It's a family
a
vacation,
rerun.
though. It's like my parents know how to do Vegas, by the way. So
Nice.
yeah, we get the hookup at Caesar's Palace, and it's my brother and my girlfriend and myself. And
Well,
so we're all,
like I said, I might be going to Vegas too. Let's just carpool.
carpool.
Yeah, I want to go to Vegas.
When you? Oh, you don't have a trip plan.
I can make something up. It can happen. I'm pretty sure. And then we've got the DPA conference coming up, right?
We do have the DPA conference.
So
coming
we
up
should
soon.
probably
plan to do something on that.
plan.
And there's a huge conference in Seattle, November 6th, 7th, and 8th,
Yeah.
put on by the Medical Marijuana Business Daily,
Yeah.
which has really become the Wall Street Journal of
They
the,
really
of the
have.
industry.
I think
Yeah.
they do a great job. They're actually going to start coming out with a print version. They've been online, and I keep up with them on a regular basis because they're constantly updating the industry and what's going on in the industry. And I love supporting those guys because I don't consider us competitors. They're very focused on business news, and we kind of focus on both business and
Is that part of Canada
retail
Business
news.
Media?
No, I don't believe it is. No.
Oh, just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will not be here next week. God, every other week is weird for me. I'm used to always being here. So
I almost forgot about today, so it's okay.
yeah, we know because I had to call her like 5 minutes before. Like, where the heck are you?
I was on my way. Obviously, I didn't forget if 5 minutes before I was walking in the
Yeah,
door.
more CBD during the day, less THC.
Whatever.
All right. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Thank you.
Peace, love, and
Hempiness.
happiness.